We're live on Periscope, live on YouTube. Now we are recording on Anchor, our app that allows us to stream Pardes live on a bunch of different podcasting platforms. And I have some important news to share tonight. So exciting. First of all, let me double check and make sure that what I'm about to share with you is real. Let's check. I'm checking YouTube. Some special things happening tonight. And oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yes, it is real. Yes, it is real. Wow. Okay. I'm gonna share the link to my YouTube. Hey Diacritical, hey everybody. If you are on YouTube, you may have noticed that my YouTube channel has been monetized. And this is so exciting. If you look at my channel, you can see, oh my gosh. I literally, by the way, I'm so sorry to sidetrack. I'm on Twitter right now, and I see this guy, Lee Stranahan, dunking on Jack Posobiec. And I'm friends with Jack. So I was like, okay, what's going on? There's a video of Jack. I guess it was like Jack at a party or something, and he was drunk, and someone took a video of him. But he's like, yeah, look at this video of Jack drunk. Oh no, look at him. He's a drunken man. Oh, and there's Jack's wife. Back then they were probably just dating. And oh no, he used God's name while he was drunk. Ho ho. These people had seen him drunk before. And like, this guy, I mean, the only reason I bring it up, first of all, it was on my feed and I thought it was interesting. But second of all, I was like, oh my gosh, is that Faith Goldie? Wow, where is this video from? I'm gonna go back and watch it. But this guy, Lee Stranahan, he seems like really angry at a bunch of people, and he's just really randomly too. I mean, it was so sudden. He's just suddenly popping off at a bunch of these people, which is really interesting. So if you're on Periscope, go move over to YouTube. I'm gonna post a link so you can see it. We're live on YouTube. Okay, so you should see the link to this live stream on YouTube. And the reason why I want you to go over to YouTube is because YouTube is monetized now, and it's really cool. And so not only do I have ads, I also have like this thing called Super Chat, and it's like you could, I mean, it's probably not as a big deal now as it will be, but it's basically like you're basically helping me build my brand. So you're like, and basically how it works is you pay like a certain amount, like a donation or something, in order to like help the comments get to the top, to help your comments get to the top of the chat. And so that's really awesome because it's kind of like, it's like a fun way to engage with everybody and be seen more. And for me, it's a great way for me to be able to, hey Jack, I was literally just talking about you. Jack Posobiec is on this live stream right now. And that's so funny. I was literally just talking about Jack. And I mean, just to recap, I saw this guy, Lee Stranahan. He's like really angry. He's just like lashing out at a bunch of people. And I've been like everything on Twitter is like blah 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 boring, and then there's this guy who's like popping off at like a million people. Oh my gosh, Diacritical 1, thank you for your super chat. This is so cool. Everyone's asking what in the world. Guys, my YouTube channel has been monetized, okay? You guys should be excited. And I got my first donation from Diacritical One. This is so cool. And it's basically super chat. So you donate like, I don't know how much, I think you could donate however much you want. And it like helps your comment get to the top. And the cool thing about it is that I see basically like I see it when you like purchase a super chat. I see like the norm, you know. Oh, I get it. Thank you so much, Jack. Jack Posobiec is congratulating me on being monetized. Oh, you know what? Now I get why everyone is confused. It's because I've got these likes and hearts. The reason why I got these likes and hearts on me is because I'm excited that I'm monetized. And this is a very great day for me because it's like a reminder that everything is moving up from here. And thank you, Joe. Everything is moving up from here, and like this channel started, like we started doing Pardes Live 4 months ago. April, May, June, July, now we're August. So 4 months ago. And it's like doing really well. I see you guys. So we're gonna keep doing it. And you know, I know I have some friends who are really interested in doing like, you know, YouTube and stuff like that. Thank you so much, Joe. Oh my gosh, this is so awesome. Joe is the second super chat. So just a reminder, we're also on Anchor, so if you want to listen to this later, like audio version, I've got this here. But I'm gonna turn off all the likes and hearts now so that we can get to more serious topics. And someone is asking me, what kind of content do I have on YouTube? The kind of content I have on YouTube is this live stream. It's more, I would say it's less like content, like it's less like expertise focused and more just focused on having a conversation and talking about whatever's happening today. It's a lot more conversational. Like, I'm not here to like tell you a bunch of facts or tell you some things that need to happen. It's more just what's going on today. We don't really have any, I'm not gonna, you know, what's going on today? What's everybody talking about? Whatever. So Adam Martin is saying, is this person the Republicans' answer to AOC? Oh my gosh, I am better at AOC than AOC is at AOC is. So that's your answer. Anyway, so I saw this, I don't know if some of you read the article that the Dayton shooter's ex-girlfriend wrote, but it's really, really, really fascinating. For people who don't know, Dayton shooter Connor Brett, he shot up a bunch of people at a bar, and two of the people that he shot up were his sister and his sister's boyfriend. And so the whole thing, and then of course he's dead now, and so the whole thing is really tragic and also really confusing. Why would this person who seems to have been okay in many regards, why would he shoot up a bunch of people and also shoot up his sister and his sister's husband? Like, what's happening? Why would someone do this? And then to top it off, according to his ex, he and his sister had a good relationship. So I'm gonna read you a little bit of the article that came out today. Today is Tuesday, August 6th. the Dayton shooter's ex-girlfriend, wrote an article, published it on Medium today, and it says, the name of the article is "My Ex-Boyfriend Was the Dayton Shooter." January 2019. So actually, this is very recent. Their relationship was very recent. It went from January to like March. January to May 2019. Just a couple months ago was when they ended their relationship. So she begins January 2019. This woman named Adelia Johnson, college kids, she and Connor used to date. In January 2019, she says, "Connor and I met in our social psychology class at Sinclair College. We bonded over the laughable conspiracy theories that our professor tried to preach as we walked to similar parking spots in the college parking garage. We also were very open about our mental illnesses from the beginning. He told me that he had bipolar disorder and possible OCD. That didn't scare me. Some of the sweetest people I know have those conditions. I told him that I have depression, generalized anxiety, and ADD. We bonded over depression humor, something that only people who have been in the throes of it really ever understand and find humorous. Joking about personal mental illness is one of the biggest coping tools in the mental health tool belt." All right, so she goes on and talks about, they talked about their dark thoughts, and she mentions, and so like as this article goes on, you hear a bunch of red flags. First of all, she mentions that he was joking about wanting to hurt people. She wrote it off as, people just being, expressing themselves. Maybe, he was just expressing himself, a way to, it's like dark humor. I'm into dark humor. A lot of people are into dark humor, and it's nothing. It's just a way to cope with, like, uncomfortable thoughts. And, she says people who do not have mental illness do not understand this sense of humor. They take it too far, but I didn't, so he trusted me. So she says that because she was tolerant of his dark humor and his a lot of things that a lot of other people would find questionable, he trusted her. And he told her his secrets. In March, she says, they kept their relationship on the down low due to the polyamorous nature of it. What does she mean by that? She says, "I was engaged to another man while dating Connor, and all parties involved knew about the situation. Everything was consensual, even if it was a bit of an adjustment." Wait. So, this woman who's dating Connor, was also engaged to another man. But it wasn't even cheating. It was like she was dating both at the same time. Her fiance and this random dude she met in her social psychology class. Oh my gosh. And just looking at the camera, I find that really, really crazy, actually. Like, I get it if you're like into a bunch of different relationships and stuff, but this person is engaged. She's engaged to be married. Why would you be engaged to be married to someone if you're still having relationships with other people? And why, like, what kind of guy would be cool with that? I don't know. Like, maybe I'm just living in a different planet, but I don't know if I've ever met a guy who would actually be cool with that if he was engaged. Like, if he was the type of guy who would be, if you're the type of guy who wants to be engaged, to be married to someone, I don't understand how you would also be the kind of person who would be cool with a polyamorous relationship. Like, those two things kind of go against each other. I don't know. Unless you want to be in a polyamorous marriage, but in that case, you would also want to be able to be in a relationship with that other person. So why would you be cool with being the other man in the relationship when you're engaged? Like, I don't know, the whole thing doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, that's their relationship. By the way, I was reading another article that Connor Brett's ex was having. It was an interview that she had with a Toledo Blade. So they dated. They met in their psychology class, and she actually said a few things. She said that he was kind of charming, and the first date, he actually. She basically showed text messages, and she doesn't even have these text messages in the article that she publishes on Medium. She basically puts she sent screenshots of her text messages to the Blade, and as Diacritical One says, she talked about, she and Connor Brett, their first date, they talk about like mass shootings. And it's like a joke, right? And she's like, oh, ha ha ha, it's all a joke. But he seemed to know a lot about it, and she didn't even think anything about it. That's the thing, like, retrospect is 2020. People are like, oh, well, why didn't she go to the FBI? I mean, you don't think about, like, a lot of people make crazy jokes. I make really dark jokes. I mean, if people took everyone's jokes seriously, I would be locked up. Because I make a lot of crazy jokes. But here's an example of text messages between them. So, sorry, his name is Connor Betts. I don't know why it keeps saying Connor Brett. Alright, she texts him, so, do you know tragedies from every city? And he's bragging a fair bit of them, like wink face, smiley face. Is that bad, LMAO? And then she goes, little bit, LOL. And he goes, LMAO, no, totally normal. S for sarcastic. And then she goes, LOL. And then he goes, I'm just a fountain of joy and wonderful, not scarring knowledge. I have such a hard time telling who sent the last message sometimes. My phone displays messages out of order. Angry emoji. And then she goes, you sent the last one. And he goes, whoops, LMAO. It really just sounds like a normal college kid's conversation. It doesn't sound like anything out of the ordinary. He sounds like a normal guy. Like, how would you know that this person is about to shoot a bunch of people? All right, so then she continues. Oh, so this is May 28th. All right. So, okay, so this is one thing. So the first text messages that I'm saying, like, you know, about him bragging that he knows about the tragedies and mass shootings in all the different cities, that's from January, okay? Why is everyone making fun of me for saying goes? It's like a way of saying that, you know, he says, he goes, you know? It's a way that people talk. It's a way that these kids these days are talking. These children these days are okay? So, after they break up, they don't talk. Okay, wait. So I'm going out of order. Okay. So you heard the text messages that they sent in the beginning. All right. Let me continue the article. March 2019, she talks about how they were in a polyamorous relationship, so she wasn't telling everybody that she was, but it was still consensual, the fact that she was dating him and her fiance at the same time, and it was supposed to be like a totally normal thing. So he goes out for drinks with Connor. We went to the Bar Louie at the Greentown Center in Beaver Creek, Ohio, she says. To our surprise, there was a red light, green light party going on. Oh my god, guys, do you know what a red light, green light party is? Yeah? Do you guys know what a red light, green light party? Okay, so red light, green light party. I actually, came out as official with my ex at a red light, green light party. It's basically it's a party where like everyone wears either red, yellow, or green. And so you wear red if you're taken. It's like all based on your relationship status. So you wear red if you're taken, you wear green if you're single, and you wear yellow if it's complicated. So if you're like not sure, if you're dating someone and you're like not sure, where is this relationship going? Are we serious? Are we in a serious relationship? Are we complicated still? Are we like not in a relationship and we're just messing around but we're still totally single? So you find out based on what your partner is wearing that night. And it's really interesting. So I remember like I wasn't official with my ex, and then the night of the red light green light party we both wore red. So that's how we knew that we're in a relationship. We didn't have to have that conversation. It was just like, okay. So anyway, so they go to this red light green light party. And in this party that she went to, instead of wearing colored shirts, they were wearing glow bracelets. So she says, he initiated me to my first gin and tonic, and having anxiety, I sucked that puppy down fast. Throughout the night, he mingled with strangers, charming them with his big smile, baby blues, and intellect. By the way, people who have bipolar disorder should not be drinking alcohol. And it really, 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 really affects you. If you have any sort of mental health condition. But alcohol, I mean, is bad for everybody, but especially if you have any sort of mental health condition, it can be bad. It can be really bad for you. And if you have bipolar disorder, it's like the worst for you, because there's so much that can go wrong. And in fact, when this shooting happened, it seems like Connor was drunk. So, all right. So he says, oh, so Connor also was a Democrat. So, you know, he's very into social justice and gun control and all these things. And they get at the party, they end up getting into a political debate with a Republican, she says. Connor really knew his stuff, and he was impressed when I knew mine. Looking back on that debate, that was one of my favorite memories. So one of her favorite memories with Connor was that he was debating a Republican. And she says, a couple of drinks later, Connor asked me if I saw the video of the synagogue shooting. As someone who makes a point to never watch those videos, I hadn't. So he pulled out his phone, and I was too drunk to care that I was watching it. So this is like, as his romantic gesture or whatever, he's showing her a video of the synagogue shooting, the Pittsburgh shooting, where like a bunch of people were shot up in a big tragedy. So, by the way, I keep saying shooting, right? This video is probably going to get demonetized, because I've been looking through the... All right, I'm not going to talk too much about monetization, but just a thought. YouTube demonetizes everything, so I'm trying to not be too excited about this stuff. Anyway, she says that they're watching this video about synagogue shooter, and Connor, meanwhile, and she's really drunk, so she kind of doesn't care. And Connor, meanwhile, is giving her the play-by-play of what's happening. And this is their first date. And he's basically, like, describing a mass shooting and, like, oh, it's so interesting, and this is what's happening, and that's what's happening. Blah, 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 blah. And he loves talking about serial killers and Ted Bundy and all these things. But she says that she still didn't think it was weird just because they were in a social psychology class. So, you know, psychology students are really interested in this sort of things, and they're fascinated by, you know, humans being crazy and acting horrible. By the way, like, isn't it ironic that he's a psychology student? Just a thought. Isn't it ironic that a psychology student who's really fascinated in the minds of shooters becomes the shooter himself. That's like a totally different thing that I'm probably gonna get into later. So she says, by the end of the night, I was trashed from accidentally drinking too much from anxiety. He seemed way soberer than I was, so we left my truck at the parking garage and he drove me home. On the way, I asked if it was a date. He asked what I wanted to be. I told him that I asked him first. There was a pause. I told him that I wanted it to be date, and I explained that I'm polyamorous. He smiled and said it was a date. Then, we got to my apartment, he walked me up, we lingered outside my door. I told him I wanted to kiss him, but I wanted to kiss him sober. He chuckled and said that was sweet, and we left it at that. By the way, like, if you're polyamorous and then you get married and you're still polyamorous, like, who's your kid's daddy? Do your kids have to come from your husband, or can their daddy be anybody? Just a thought, just point of curiosity. Okay, so oh my gosh, I just saw Felix's comment that says yellow equals I'm married but I hate my wife and want to cheat on her because I'm a scumbag. That's so funny. That's really funny. Oh, Joe and Diacritical, thank you for your super chats. That's really cool. And so anyway, she says that he was a perfect gentleman throughout their relationship. He never pushed her to do anything she wasn't comfortable doing. He always made sure that she was comfortable. He was understanding and consenting about her polyamorous relationships. And mostly they would go out and talk about their mental illness, and he would tell her about the world tragedies, and she would talk about TV shows. And she didn't think any of them were red flags, I guess, until later. She said in March or April, there was one night when he called her, and he was out in Illinois playing a gig with his metal band, Menstrual Munchies. That was his metal band that he was part of. He got super drunk. Most of the time, she couldn't understand what he was saying because he talked in a low voice. But then added to that, he was drunk this time, and he was slurring. So she only caught part of it. But basically, what he was saying was that he wanted to hurt a bunch of people. And he told her this. So it wasn't like she thought that maybe. He literally calls her drunk saying that he wants to hurt a bunch of people. And he didn't have plans. She wrote it off as something that, he was really sad, he was drunk, and he was mentally ill. So he's just saying those sorts of things, but that's not really how he feels in his normal state of mind. Then, in May, she says the next red flag was a letter. Basically, they both were planning to have lunch one day. He asked, and this is according to her words, he asked if he could drop off a letter to one of his friends that had just moved into town. I said, sure, that's sweet. When we drove by the house, though, there was someone working in the yard outside. He pouted and said that he wanted the letter to be a surprise. So I suggested that we come back after lunch. And that's what we did. Sure enough, there was still someone outside. I told him to just deliver it anyway, but he got frustrated. When I pushed the subject further, he told me that was his ex-girlfriend's house and that he threw a picture on her Facebook. So he was looking for his ex-girlfriend's house. He literally found her house by stalking her through her Facebook and trying to match one of her pictures on Facebook to the house. That's how he found her house. She says, then I asked to read the letter. I don't remember the exact words, but it was something to the effect of, welcome to the neighborhood. You can't outrun your past. Signed, your neighbor. That sounds like a threat. She says I asked him about that, about if he knew how messed up that was. He tried to downplay it as a joke, but I knew it wasn't, so I pushed further. He admitted that sometimes he got uncontrollable urges to do things. The only other example of those urges that I remember is burning down an abandoned building with his friends. He told me that he always felt terrible afterwards, and I took it as an opportunity to try and show him a coping method. We pulled into the parking lot, jammed the letter into a hole under a parking block, and lit the letter on fire, watching it to make sure the pieces didn't fly off and start a wildfire. So, I mean, it seems like this girl thinks that she's helping him. So she's like, oh, you know, like, here, let's do this. And a lot of girls do this, I do this, where you think that, like, you're gonna be the person to save this man. This man is having problems. He's having all these dark thoughts about shooting a bunch of people, killing a bunch of people, murdering his ex, going in and lighting a building on fire. But you think, as a girl, you think that you're gonna be the special woman to come into this man's life and save him from himself and help him out. And I just feel like this is such a classic female thing. And it's like, girl, you're not saving this man at all. If this man seems like he's different in any way, if this man looks like he's changed in any way, it's only because he's changed his attitude in front of you. He's not actually different because of you. He's different to you because of you. Anyway, he says, she says that she wants to break things off with him at this point. This is like, after this stuff with the ex, she gets scared. Oh no, like, he's threatening his ex. What if he does that to me? So he's like, well, she's like, okay, I want to break it off with him, but I don't want to do it in a crazy way, so that he gets angry and comes after me. So she says, I knew that I wanted to break things off with him, but I waited a few days to cool off. I wanted to wait until my fiance got back from a work trip, but then Connor started asking inappropriate questions. He texted me to ask how often my fiance and I had sex, to which I told him I wasn't comfortable responding. Then he asked if I ever thought about killing myself. Now, we had spoken about suicide before. He knew that I had. This felt like he was trying to play mind games with me. In the gentlest way that I could, I told him that I didn't think he was ready for a relationship in the mental state that he was in. He needed to go do more work on himself and find more coping mechanisms, so he didn't become so dependent on other people. I didn't have the emotional capacity to be his therapist, and that wasn't my job. I just wanted to be his girlfriend, and it was clear that he was not in a position that was possible. Wait, by the way, she wanted to be his girlfriend. Doesn't she have a fiance? Oh, okay, my bad. He texted back a snarky reply to the effect of, I hope you find peace and never have to stress about anything again. Honestly, it was a better reply than I had been anticipating. I then reached out to his mother to tell her what happened, she says. I wanted him to be safe and I didn't know if he would tell her. I didn't want this breakup to be a catalyst for unsafe behavior. But given that the breakup happened through text, there wasn't a good gauge for how he was feeling. So, fast forward to August 2019, which is this month. Today is August 6th. She says 2-ish months later, and the shooting happens. She was in Orlando when the Pulse shooting happened, and she's basically like, wow, okay, the shooting happens. Her friends are asking her, like, where's Connor? Is Connor the shooter? And she's like, what do you mean? Why would Connor be the shooter? She didn't think it, she didn't think anything of it. But then she looks it up and she Googles it and she's like, wow, her ex-boyfriend was the shooter. 24 years old. She says, my ex-boyfriend was a mass murderer. My ex-boyfriend was a mass murderer. I still don't know how to wrap my head around that. That man who was so sweet to me and told me he loved me was a mass murderer. I kissed a mass murderer. I thought I had decent judgment and character, but now I feel like my entire psyche needs to be scooped out and reevaluated under a microscope. I am beyond thankful that I have such wonderful therapists to help me through this. And then I found out about his sister. So she continues that he actually had a good relationship with his sister. And he actually liked his sister. Why would he kill his sister? He didn't like his parents. Why would he kill his sister and her boyfriend? He was drunk at a bar and too impulsive for that to have been the case. She says she doesn't know what his motivation was and that she doesn't think this was a hate crime. Because in his normal state of mind, he wasn't like that. And he actually was very pro gun control. And, you know, she says he knew he shouldn't have been allowed to have a gun. He believed that people with mental illnesses shouldn't be allowed to own guns. He said twice he had held a gun in his mouth ready to pull his trigger. He hated himself, and that was like a normal part of his life. He hated himself. And she says that another thing is just having like a person who has a gun in their hand at some point, it's like makes them want to use it. She talks about mental health, and she says that he wanted to be better and he just didn't know how. And so he's just a really troubled person. He was a really troubled person. And it's actually a nice article because she doesn't, in the article, this ex-girlfriend she's not blaming herself. She's not blaming anybody. She's, you know, with compassion, saying what's happened, with compassion to him and compassion to the victims. And she's just saying what's happened as it is. She's not blaming herself or anybody. And to the blade. So in this interview that she has, she kind of goes into this all in more depth. After they broke up, they didn't talk until a series of tornadoes ripped through her community at the end of May, and this was in Ohio. So he texted her asking if she was okay. He wished her and her family good luck. This is after they broke up. He says, glad y'all made it through safely. And she didn't text him again until Sunday afternoon, when rumors first began to circulate that he was the shooter who opened fire on a crowded street in the Oregon district. All right. So she says, yeah, our power is still out. This is May 28th. He says, good luck to y'all. Shit got a little hairy up there right here. She says, yeah, luckily no damages, no damage to our apartment or family's homes. Our power is still out. My parents don't have power anymore. He says, glad to hear it. Best luck with all that. Glad y'all made it through safely. All right, so you see a text message here, the day of the shooting that happens. She texts him, hey, are you okay? Because that's when she started hearing already that he was the shooter. And he didn't respond. And in the middle of the interview with the blade, actually, it looks like FBI agents interrupted the interview to talk to her. Another thing is, I wonder if she actually went to the FBI. Here's another chain of text messages between her and her friends, where she's talking to her friends Erin and Heather. They're two girls and they're in a group chat. A lot of girls have that, group chats, and they talk about their relationships. And after they broke up, she tells her girlfriends, in other news, I broke things off with Connor, and now I'm scared that he might try to hurt me or stalk me. Her friend Heather says, yikes, what's he done to give you that impression? And she says, nothing to me, but the kinds of things that he says not directed towards me is spooky. And she talks about red flags. Her friends were interviewed by The Blade. Her friend Erin said that she said, I know they only dated for a little bit. I do remember her talking about him and how she was scared of him when she broke up with him, and that he wouldn't really leave her alone. So there's all the red flags are there, but the thing is that, like, a lot of these red flags, you wouldn't necessarily think of them as red flags when they're happening, because it feels like, oh, well, this is normal. I mean, this is really just a joke. This is really just what anyone else would do in this situation. But all these things added up, when you look in retrospect, it's like, oh, okay, I had these signs. I wonder if she ever went to the FBI. FBI Dayton shooter. I don't know if anyone actually went to the FBI. So the an FBI agent says that this man had been exploring, like, shooting ideologies before this happened. So I guess that was a clue, but, like, a lot of people are into that sort of thing. I don't know, like, I know people who are really into, like, discovering about these different shootings and different, like, niche communities. I don't know how to describe it, but, like, I'm really into learning about cults. I mean, I'm not into any of those kind of stuff, but I don't know, like, crazy things. Some people are really, like, I'm really interested about learning about, like, extreme religions and cults. That's, like, my thing. I know a lot of people are interested in learning about, what's Columbines? That's, I heard about it from one of my friends who's, like, really fascinated by that. People will go online and they'll search about all sorts of, like, crazy, weird topics. And no one thinks anything of it, because it's like, oh, and especially this guy, he was a psychology student. So how would anybody know? He's a psychology student. He's very fascinated by the psychology of shooters. And someone is asking me, when you say people, do you really mean you? No, I don't mean me. I'm literally saying people. I mean me, the fact that I'm, like, sometimes interested in certain things, but anyway, so he's like a psychology student. He's talking about, like, and he's really fascinated in these shooting, like, these, like, mindset of shooters. And it doesn't seem, like, out of the ordinary, to be honest. It's not, and he's also, like, anti-guns. He doesn't seem like your first target. And not that I think someone who's anti-guns is not going to be a shooter. In fact, that there's literally no proof or reason for someone who's anti-guns to be labeled as a shooter, for them to be, like, there's no evidence that anyone who's anti-guns or for gun control is going to be any less violent. So, but with this guy, like, I can't imagine how people would have thought that he's going to be a mass shooter. I know people who are insane, and when I say people, I obviously don't mean me, so please don't try to twist my words, but I know people who are actually really insane and will do really crazy things and will stalk other people and will, hurt themselves or threaten to hurt other people. And, like, a lot of people that I know are like that, and they're, I guess, like, very well integrated in society. They're not, like, treated like potential mass shooters, because they're not going around and hurting people. But how would you be able to differentiate it, to be honest? It's really hard to know how to prevent something like this. how would I be able to differentiate someone who's like a, crazy ex-girlfriend stalker with an actual potential killer? I don't know how I would be able to tell the difference. And I don't know how a lot of people will be able to tell the difference. Someone is saying that the problem is over-medication. I don't know. I actually don't even know if it's over-medication, because a lot of people who should be on medication are not on medications, and that's when they're at their craziest. I used to be really anti overprescribing people, and I'm still anti overprescribing people, but I used to be really anti just prescription medicine in general. And the more life goes on, the more I am starting to become okay with that idea. I personally have become more comfortable with prescription meds for myself. Like, let's say I'm, having anxiety or whatever. And I think that, it really does help. And it doesn't only help in the moment, but for a lot of people, it can really improve your life, because less anxiety episodes, less panic attacks, less of these crazy things means less interruption with your rhythm of life, which means less potential for future panic attacks. So it's like it's not just a Band-Aid like I thought. You know what I mean? It's not, prescription medication is not just a Band-Aid. Prescription meds are a way to prevent future, prescription meds help with future episodes, mental health episodes, mental problems. So as time goes on, I'm becoming more and more comfortable with prescription medication. So, in fact, I think this guy should have been on meds. Oh my God, I have so many trolls in my Periscope. Now someone is asking me if I'm the ex of the Dayton shooter. The ex of the Dayton shooter her name is Adelia Johnson. So, this guy is bipolar and he's drinking alcohol. That shouldn't be a thing. You shouldn't be bipolar and drinking alcohol. And that's a thing. It's not good. It's not good for anybody. Some of the worst things that I've done or said, the most destructive things that I've done or said, have been when I was either drunk or high. And it's not worth it. It just takes one situation of you doing or saying something and burning it all to the ground, and it's just for a moment of enjoying yourself. And so I don't want to, I have recently had, times where I got drunk, but I really, I try not to drink really. And even if I do just a little bit, I try not to get drunk in any way, because honestly, I feel like alcohol is a huge killer. And by the way, speaking of alcohol, someone is asking me to say things that I've done drunk or high. Oh my God, I've done a lot of things drunk or high. I climbed into a garbage can one time, those big garbage cans that are in the alleyway for garbage trucks. I climbed into one of those. What else did I do? I was high. I was with my friend. We basically went in the street and just laid on the cement because we thought it was nice. I don't know, angel. We did angel wings. I don't know. I think we were just having fun there, but I think alcohol is the worst. As someone who's, I don't think people are oh no, marijuana's a gateway drug. I don't think marijuana's really as bad as alcohol. I really don't. I think alcohol is really awful. And in fact, I would be perfectly fine with alcohol being outlawed in this country. And I know that, like, as someone who enjoys freedom, that goes against my principle. And as, you know, it goes against the principle of freedom. But, and I don't think that, according to my principles, I don't think alcohol should be illegal. But, according to my personal desires, if alcohol did become illegal, I would be perfectly fine with it. Because so many problems in this country are because of alcohol. And I used to work in a hospital. In case you didn't notice, I used to work in different parts of the hospital. I was in the spine unit. That's when I was first interning as like a nurse's assistant, whatever. So I was in a spine unit for 6 months. I also was an intern in an operating room, and I did research. I did perioperative research for an anesthesia residency unit, whatever. So basically, in my research, we had to basically collect the data of all the surgeries that had gone wrong or had been canceled in the past like year or 2 years in that hospital. And we had to find out what went wrong. Why are these people having problems? And going through every single failed or not carried out surgery, the number one problem seemed to be alcohol. The number one problem was actually high blood pressure, but the thing that was causing it was the majority of these people were actually either drank alcohol or drank alcohol too regularly, or they were alcoholics. Alcohol seemed to be like the number one catalyst for all these problems. The alcohol caused high blood pressure, or maybe they were having a drink before their surgery, or maybe in general they were alcoholics, or maybe they drank regularly. Alcohol is not only awful for people's health, it causes relationship problems. A lot of our problems in this country is because of alcohol. And I'm saying this as someone who's living in Washington, D.C., which is the capital of alcoholism in the entire country. Washington, D.C. has the highest rate of alcoholics from the entire country. And not only does it have the highest concentration of alcoholics, it also has the highest rate of people with mental illnesses. And I know that correlation is not causation, but look at the correlation. We've got the highest rate of mental illnesses, and we've got the highest rate of alcoholism. Alcoholism and mental illness go hand in hand. And the crazy thing is, the more mentally ill someone is, the worse alcohol is for them. But also, the more mentally ill someone is, the more likely they are to consume alcohol. So the whole thing is just it's like a weird, it's kind of like a downward spiral when you mix alcohol and mental illness. And I would be perfectly happy, even though it goes against my principles, I would be perfectly happy if alcohol was outlawed in this country. It's worse than marijuana. And people are like, oh, well, marijuana makes people dumb. Okay, is that people are dumb in this country without marijuana. I mean, we've got an insane amount of dumb people who, and they've never even rolled a joint in their life. I don't think that the worst thing possible is if someone is a little slow. I do think it's the worst thing possible if you mix alcohol and mental illnesses. I think that that's really causing a lot of problems in this country. And if you're gonna outlaw drugs, the number one thing that should be, if you're it goes against my principles to outlaw a bunch of things that it should be people's own responsibility to regulate. But if you're gonna outlaw drugs, then the first thing you should be outlawing is alcohol. Like, and not only surgery, someone in the comments mentioned, it's also car accidents. Like, if you look at all these bad things that are happening to people, all the number one causes of death in this country, alcohol, there's hypertension, like high blood pressure, heart disease, cancer, car accidents, suicide. All of these things can be linked to alcoholism. All of them. Imagine how many people in this country's lives would be saved if alcohol was outlawed. I would be perfectly happy with alcohol being outlawed in this country. Like, it goes against my principles, whatever. As a pragmatic thing, I would be 100% okay and comfortable with alcohol being banned in the United States. Someone is saying, Pardes, do you even do individual liberty? I'm telling you, this goes against my principles completely. But like, I really actually do see alcohol as like a national enemy. I see alcohol as like an enemy, like a terrorist that we have to eradicate. That's literally how I see alcohol. I see it as a terrorist, a threat to national security that we have to take out. That is how I see alcohol. And someone is asking, how about weed? I don't think, whatever you think about other kinds of drugs, I don't think weed is as bad in any way as alcohol. And weed is not causing the amount of damage to this country that alcohol is causing. And I still go out and drink. Even that, I mean, it bothers me that I even go out and drink, even though like in the moment I enjoy it. And it's even that has an effect on people. So, I don't know why this should make people angry, unless you're an alcoholic and you're dependent on alcohol, in which case, I am right. So I'm sure you can handle your alcohol. I'm sure that you're not an alcoholic and you're great and whatever, but alcohol is still causing a lot of deaths in this country. And however much, people are like, oh, you can compare this to guns. Why ban all guns if only some people are misusing them? So why ban all alcohol if only some people are alcoholics? But here's the difference. Having alcohol is not an individual liberty. Having alcohol is not like a means of self-defense. Alcohol is the same as a recreational drug. It's recreational. If you think that certain drugs should be outlawed, then alcohol should be outlawed too. Because alcohol is worse than weed. Why is weed still illegal? I'm not saying from a policy standpoint alcohol should be outlawed. This is just me as like a musing. Like if it were outlawed, I would actually be fine with it. But I don't know. I just think that it's crazy that like weed is still illegal in most states and alcohol isn't. Sorry, and alcohol is legal. It really seems crazy to me. If you're gonna ban it, ban the real ones, ban alcohol. Someone is saying, but alcohol isn't as bad as heroin. Oh wow, okay. Well then. Alright, so we're gonna say goodnight to our Anchor listeners. If you're listening on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Google, whatever, definitely go over to my YouTube channel to watch the full video versions of this podcast. And Subscribe to my channel. All right. So we said goodbye to the podcast people, the audio podcast people. If you want to listen to this, like in your car, you just want to hear the audio version, and you don't want to have to leave your YouTube on. You can go ahead to Anchor. I've got it all on podcasts and just the audio version recorded, so you can see it there. Yeah. So Global says humans like to lose brain cells for some reason. Aster says the state doesn't want to lose tax revenue from alcohol sales. I mean, I get it. People spend so much money on alcohol, it's crazy. We're not spending so much money on heroin or whatever. We're spending a lot of money on alcohol. Diacritical says heroin addicts, learners, and nodders are okay as long as they are not jonesing. I've never seen or heard of a heroin addict going and shooting up a bunch of people. I don't know. Alcohol causes violence. A lot of drugs will make people crazy and just really paranoid and weird and crazy. I mean, some of them will make people violent, but I've never seen the amount of violence caused by anything other than alcohol. Alcohol is, from what I've seen, the worst catalyst for violence. So if you're gonna ban those drugs, you should ban alcohol first. Okay. Someone is asking, what does this have to do with Dayton Shooter? Dayton Shooter was drunk when he shot a bunch of people at a bar. All right. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful evening. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Definitely subscribe to my channel. It will make me really happy, and I'm really excited because this channel, it's growing really fast. Thanks to you guys, it's growing really fast. Already got a nice amount of subscribers, and we're already monetized, and it's really great. So if you're here, if you're on Periscope, definitely go over to YouTube and subscribe on YouTube, because I would rather, I like YouTube better because that's where I'm monetized. That's where we've got a little community and people see when we're going live. With Periscope, you don't necessarily see if we're going live. Periscope seems like kind of the Wild West. And I like my YouTube people because YouTube is where I'm actually going to start making a living out of this because I'm going to start doing this full time. So anyway, see you all tomorrow night.